it's actually alright out here. But remember kids, stay hydrated, okay? Alrighty, so welcome back to another Sunday school lesson. I hope this week was good for you guys and that God blesses you throughout the weeks to come. And so, alright, so a little bit of recap of what happened last week. We were with Moses in the Red Sea. You know, when he rescued the Israelites from Egypt, they were fleeing from Pharaoh, and Pharaoh was chasing them, and they led them to the Red Sea, and so they were stuck over there. But God, His power showed throughout that, and so He divided the seas, allowing the Israelites to escape through, and then closed the sea so that their pursuers were destroyed. And so that was God's greatness showed, and so every Israelite saw God's power. And so with this week, we follow up with Moses, with him now wandering the desert. They passed the Red Sea, and now they gotta wander the desert now, and so we will get to how they are doing with that one. So I ask you guys to read Exodus chapter 16 verse 2 through 4, Exodus chapter 16 verse 13 through 20, and Exodus chapter 17 verse 3 through 6 before we begin. All right, so back with the lesson in Exodus chapter 16 verse 2 through 4. We find that while they're in the desert and they're starving, and so they complained to Moses and told Moses to complain to God. And so saying that it's better off that they were in Egypt, they were slaves, but yet they had full stomachs, rather than being freed but then starving out in the wilderness. And so with that one, Moses went to God for answers, and so with God's answer, he said that He will provide for them, and that their only command is to gather only a day's worth. And so, and also in that little passage right there, it says that God will test them on that thing. So be a little question for you guys: what was that test that they give? And so we're about to find out in the next verses. In Exodus chapter 16 verse 13 through 20, God provided what He had promised, and so He rained down manna, and that's like a little bread, like crumbs or something like that, to feed the Israelites so that they won't go hungry. And so with that one, Moses had told the Israelites what God had told him: they only gather a day's worth, and that every day God will provide for you guys. And so, but did the Israelites listen? No. And so for them, they gathered a lot. They gathered a whole bunch, only to find out that worms had come in and eaten it, and it smelled pretty terrible. And so with that one, how was God's test then? What was God's test to them? So with that one, it was their faith being tested. It's like, Mike, how is their faith being tested in this case? Well, like I said, God is the provider. He provided food for them, and so since He did provide food for them, shouldn't they have already the faith to know that He will provide the next day as well? With Exodus chapter 17 verse 3 through 6, we find out that the Israelites complained again. And so, but this time, they had food. What was the other thing they needed out in the desert? Hydration. Like I said, stay hydrated, even though it's a pretty decent day out today. Oh, there's the sun. So yeah, for that one, yes, they were thirsty, as in the water thirsty. Okay, don't get any ideas. So it's and then this time they complained to Moses about the thirst, the water. It's was it better for us to be in Egypt, even when we had water to feed, I guess, for ourselves and our cattle? It's it's better off if we stayed in Egypt. And so they complained about all that. And with that one, God provided again. He told Moses to go and strike a rock, and He said to bring elders with you so that they would I really don't know why He had elders there to witness that scene, but in other words, God provided again for His people. So you're probably thinking, Mike, what lesson can we learn from this Sunday school lesson today? And so, like I said, the main idea is grace, God's grace in the wilderness. And so with this one, like we know, grace is being given something that you did not deserve. And in this case, did the Israelites deserve to be fed food, to be given water in the wilderness? No, I mean, what did they do to God in order to deserve all that? Pretty much nothing. I mean, they complained to God. As like, does complaining to God get you something? Of course not. But it's because of who God is that you get all the stuff that you get in your life. And so, but in other words, like, again, what can we offer to God? And so that one maybe acts of service or a lot of stuff like that. But even like, you doing stuff out of your own power is sometimes not enough. And so the other part of that, it's like faith without works is dead. Of course, you have to have that works part, but the other part is faith. And so, like I said, when they were being tested, their faith was being tested. All right. And so, did they pass that test? You say. Well, of course not. I mean, think about it. I'm not sure about what you guys had nowadays, but then for me, back when I was in high school, we had the graduation test. And if you didn't pass the graduation test, you don't graduate. And so in this case, the Israelites failed the faith test. Does that mean that God just completely forgot about them? Of course not. And so with that one, it's God's grace. He forgave them despite their lack of faith. He forgave them despite they fail. He forgave them despite their sin against God. And so same thing with you and me. Sometimes we lose faith. Sometimes we fail the faith test. Sometimes we just complain against God for everything that's going on in our lives, and we don't really see His love at that moment. But yet, God still has grace toward us and to provide for us whenever you can say He sees fit and according to our needs. And so that is my lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson and took something from it. And I pray that God will continually be in your life and you get to know God more and increase in spiritual faith and knowledge and all that, etc. And so I pray for a good week for you guys. So see you next time.